So the bullpen, as we hit our second storyline, it's been a strength the last 3 years. It's been talked about a lot. It's been, for the most part, a strength so far this year. But all of a sudden, with the news that has come out over the last few days, there is some fair reason for concern. Matt Brash, we talked about him as basically a whole storyline on our last show. It's now confirmed, unfortunately, he had Tommy John surgery. I don't think anybody's shocked to hear it. I think we were all expecting I think we were all expecting it. I think we were all hoping he could find some way to avoid it. He didn't. He's going to be out about 12 months. Gregory Santos, this is the one that was a little bit more news, and it's unfortunate. He had a setback in his recovery from this lat strain that he has. Now his timetable has been pushed back from June 1st to, they say, sometime in July. So of this three-headed monster that we've talked about a ton since Santos was acquired, one of them's done for the year. One of them's missing half the season. So all of that paired with Taylor Saucedo currently on the IL, how do you maneuver and operate this bullpen going forward?
You have to add, period. Like, it's not even an if at this point. At full strength, full health, this bullpen probably doesn't need an addition. But this one does. Like, this one does. Have you seen, did you see the stat brought up today online on Twitter? I can't remember exactly who brought it up, but I thought it pointed out a good point. Are you aware of like the meltdowns versus shutdowns for relievers, right? You come in and you have an outing and it's based on how much win probability you add versus subtract. If you subtract too much, it's a meltdown. If you add enough in each direction, it's a meltdown or a shutdown. Shutdown's good, meltdown's bad. Do you know the Mariners only have 2 relievers right now who have more shutdowns than meltdowns, like adding more wins, adding more win probability than they're losing?
Would that be Munoz? And I'm sure he's one. And then
I think it's Munoz and Gabe.
I was going to say it's either Gabe or Thornton.
Yeah, it's Munoz and Gabe. That's it. Right?
Yeah.
And if you just sit here and like think, like within AAA in the big leagues, like who do you trust right now to get 3 outs in that bullpen reliably? It's Munoz. It's Gabe. Trent Thornton mostly. Like Trent's
I would
been
trust
good.
Trent Thornton at this point.
Okay. Yeah. So like Trent's been good. But outside of that, like that's only 3. Ryan Stanek is who we expected to come in and be a significant piece of this bullpen, has struggled. Since April 25th, he has an ERA of 9, 10 hits in 5 innings, not missing bats. He's only got 6 strikeouts in that span. It's not really looking good for him. He's been like a league average arm since he's joined this bullpen this year. And it's disappointing because the stuff is still explosive. He's still throwing really hard. The fastball is going, 98 to 100 miles an hour. And the off-speed stuff looks good, but it's just not being executed very well. And the results overall for him have not been good. If he was a starter and he held up that stuff, then maybe over a long period of time, that stuff would stabilize and he'd end up having a good season. But relievers don't get that luxury. You're either good or you have a few bad outings and it screws the rest of your season. And it sure looks, at least how Ryan Stanek is trending, that might end up happening to him. And it leaves the Mariners in a pretty precarious situation where if they think about it right now, they're going to be leaning a lot in leverage situations on Munoz, Gabe, and Trent Thornton. And just, again, hoping Taylor Saucedo gets back and healthy. And at this point, if you get something from Gregory Santos this season, that's a plus. Because we're at setback number 2 right now. And we don't know if Santos will have another setback once you reach June. And he's trying to progress and it's just not cooperating with him. So they're in a spot right now.
Justin Hollander did say about Santos that since he had that setback, the setback wasn't, it made it sound like that was a couple weeks ago, the setback he had. And since then, they like everything he's been doing. And he's still throwing from about 60 feet. I'm trying to remember if he said 90 or not. The point being, he is throwing. And he's back in Seattle now for whatever it's worth. We tweeted out a video on Monday, just in case you're curious. He's with the team. He's out of Arizona. He's doing all his work now in Seattle. They said he might make some road trips with the team too. So he's with the ball club. That's always a nice plus that he can be around the team. And he seemed like he was in pretty good spirits just watching him on Monday. But yeah, so the nice thing is this isn't an arm issue. And it sounds like from what Hollander said that he's looked great ever since the setback. But yes, you can't rely on it at this point. The hopeful the hopeful thinking is it's a July return. And I think there's still a chance it's a July return. From the information we have now, if you can get him for the second half, awesome. That would be a huge, huge, essentially, addition to the team. But you do with that, even if Santos comes back, you're at the point where you have to find another arm to add to the pen too.
At least one, if
Right.
not more than that, and if not more than one, because if Santos comes back, then you have your 3 leverage guys who are, by the way, as good as Trent Thornton has been, it just doesn't offer quite the same upside as what we originally projected for this bullpen. Again, we think Santos will be a leverage arm, but again, we don't know what we're expecting from him this season. He could, after missing all this time, not pitch well because he doesn't get his proper ramp up into the season. Might feel like he's getting rushed back into things. And then, again, Stanek's been just okay. And then you sit here and you wonder, okay, well, we still have more spots to fill. So Saucedo, again, we're expecting to come back and be healthy and be a contributor. It still leaves you at a point where you can add someone. You can go trade for someone. We've talked about Paul Sewald multiple times if the Diamondbacks don't keep winning games. Relievers are pretty easy to acquire at the deadline. It's not exactly a strapped commodity like starting pitching. The Mariners certainly have the resources to pay. I don't think they'd overpay for a reliever. They know what they can do with arms, but they have the resources to, for the right price, go acquire a bullpen arm. But there was also another idea floated out there that I think you and I both like that I'll tee up here.
Before you do that,
Yeah.
let's save him.
Okay.
Because we got asked on our live stream on Sunday, who could they go trade for? Now, on the fly, because there's so many relievers out there, it's hard to just on the spot think about names, right? It's one thing to think about a bat or two you could acquire. Relievers are so many. So we floated out a couple ideas like Sewald on the live stream, which, by the way, another shameless plug here. We do go live for our live streams every Sunday night, YouTube, Instagram, to answer your guys' questions. So if you guys have questions, you guys want us to take your questions, come hang out and send them to us on Sunday nights.
7 o'clock Pacific.
7 o'clock Pacific, Instagram and YouTube. So now that we have a little bit more time, and now that we had time to prep for this podcast where we knew this was going to be a topic, I wanted to tee up some ideas both for you and for all of our listeners to think about. We talked about Sewald. Here's a couple others I wrote down because I try to look at teams that are losing and teams that might be forced to sell come July or August.
Is there an Astro on there?
You know, I did think about Brian Abreu.
Are we just going to do the reverse-aroo of 2021?
Listen, if the Mariners want to trade for Brian Abreu, I'm not saying no. Here's the problem. He's got either 2.5 or 3.5 years of club control still. I believe he's a free agent in 2027. So he's got a lot of time, and he probably costs a lot.
Isn't Presley an incumbent free agent?
He's been bad.
Wow.
He's had a bad year. So
all you need is 2 good months.
It's true, but he's 35. Again, a lot of the peripherals are going down. Who's to say this is not a failed experiment if they tried to trade for him?
That's fair.
I don't know.
That's fair.
So here's some guys I looked into. I'm just going to throw out the list. Jordan Romano's one. If the Blue Jays are going to keep losing, that could be a guy they look into. He's been a high leverage arm, plenty. I looked at a couple guys from the Nationals. Oh, I will say on Romano, his peripherals aren't great so far this year. Let's see what he looks like here in July. He's getting hit pretty hard right now, but obviously his track record's good. And his ERA is still good for now. It's just some of the expecteds say, let's keep watching. From the Nationals, there's guys like Hunter Harvey, who's had a really good year. Kyle Finnegan's another. You look at Tanner Scott from the Marlins, right? They're certainly going to be selling. He has gotten his ERA more under control. It's certainly a guy you could check in with. You could look at Andrew Kittredge from the Cardinals, Seattle guy, right? That's somebody they could check in with. I'll throw out one crazy one just for the fun of saying, what could this bullpen be if you add this guy? With a year and a half of club control, would they call about Ryan Helsley from the Cardinals? Who's been awesome.
I like that.
I mean, would it cost a bit? Sure. I don't think it would cost your whole farm system or anything for a year and a half of a reliever. But if you want to just cook up the idea, all of a sudden your 2024 bullpen becomes Munoz, Helsley, Santos, Spire, Sauce. And then your July of 2025 bullpen, if you want to make a run in 2025, which you should with this whole core, becomes Munoz, Helsley, Brash, Santos, Spire, Sauce. I don't know, man. Compared with that rotation, who says you need any offense?
Could we just have like a lot of fun and just say that Mariners should trade back for Edwin Diaz?
Could you
We already
imagine
suggested
that?
a Pete Alonso trade. If the Mets are going to trade Pete Alonso, they might as well just trade a reliever too.
The difference is, would the Mariners be willing to take on the $20 million a year that Edwin Diaz?
Absolutely not. But, Jerry will find a way.
Sure. Well, just rehire Brody as the Mets GM, and he'll agree to eat all the money.
Perfect. That works. So they could send Diaz, and then they could throw Lindor in there too. Yeah.
Sure.
Perfect.
Brody will
only one of those owners is worth $35 billion. So it's fine. Stevie can take the bill.
Right. I am serious about the Helsley thing, though. I know we're kind of joking around.
And I'm
about
serious
Eddie.
when I say that sounds like a really good idea. These two teams have been linked for a while as trade partners. So why not they just rip the Band-Aid off and do it for an arm like that? That sounds fun.
That would be sick if Ryan Helsley was in this bullpen. So maybe that's the one to dream on. Again, I would keep watching Jordan Romano. I would watch Tanner Scott. I think those are two that make a lot of sense. Maybe a couple of those Nationals guys like Harvey could make some sense. Maybe there's a guy that's a little bit lower leverage, but the Mariners like all the expecteds on and some of the underlying numbers on that we're not even thinking about. But if you want to dream on one, again, you can think about Ryan Helsley. Now we can pivot to what we were just alluding to before we were just diving into potential trade pieces. There's somebody in. Well, go ahead.
Well, you can finish your. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's somebody in house that they could consider here too. That's what I was going to say.
And so we've talked about Logan Evans potentially being a big league ready arm this year. If you think about it, so he's currently sporting a 1.34 ERA in Double-A. Pretty good. If he gets to July, he's probably not going to hold a 1.3 ERA. As nasty as he is, it's really hard to hold a 1.3 ERA as a starter. But even if this dude is sitting in like the 2.5s with a high strikeout rate and his walks are under control by the time you reach the middle of July, probably you get him a few months in Double-A. And if he's proving that he is clearly too good for Double-A and he continues to dominate, but you don't have room for him in your rotation, and you won't barring injury. And you won't if Emerson Hancock stays in the organization and is your number 6 starter. There is legitimately no path to the big leagues for Logan Evans this year, if all of those things continue this year, unless you put him in the bullpen. If that is one way to get minor leaguers ready for big league batters, is you put them in the bullpen and you let them pitch against big leaguers just in shorter spurts. Is it best for Logan Evans' future as a starter to put him in the bullpen? It's like a wishy-wash. Like, it really depends on the pitcher and what they need to work on. But I don't know if workload is something, and distance in games is something Logan Evans necessarily needs to work on. Not yet, at least. That might be a big league issue for him, but that's a bridge they can cross when they get there. What if Logan Evans is getting close to what the Mariners deem should be his innings limit this year, and he's only got like 3 starts left? What's a way to prolong that? Just put him in the bullpen. Put him in the big league bullpen and let that 90, like the 4-pitch mix throwing as high as 99 help you push for a playoff spot.
Oh, he's got more than 4 pitches. He talked about it with us. Now, he might use 4 more than the others, but if he chooses to, he can throw 7? Guy's got an arsenal and a half. So let me ask all you fans and listeners this. Would you be interested in adding to the bullpen an arm that throws 99 miles an hour with a deadly slider? I would hope the answer to that is yes. I would be interested in that. And in terms of Logan Evans' development, I think he'd be totally fine. And here's why I say that. Logan Evans' future is not a bullpen arm. When the offseason comes around, the Mariners will tell him, build back up as a starter, train to be a starter. When you get into spring training, you're going to be a starter. That's all well and good. But you can help us win in 2024. If it's the All-Star break and the Mariners are looking at Logan Evans and saying, this is one of the 10 to 12 best arms in the organization, and we have a chance to win the World Series this year. If we get in with this rotation, we have a chance to make a run. We just need to shore up the bullpen. And you say that arm can help us make a World Series run this year, yes, you absolutely call him up to be in the bullpen. You know who's done this in the past? The Dodgers. Dustin May, when he was a prospect, was throwing ridiculous 99, 100-mile-an-hour darts with crazy off speed, but the Dodgers rotation was so deep, they didn't have a spot for him at the time. So they said, listen, Dustin, you're a big league arm. We just don't have room in the rotation. You're going to be put in the bullpen for time being. The Mariners can do the exact same thing here with Logan Evans. And in 2024 specifically, he can be a lights-out reliever that throws gas at the back of the bullpen and help shore things up for the Mariners. That's a real option. Ryan Divish tweeted out the same thing the other day. This is a real possibility. Do not be shocked at all if we see Logan Evans in the big leagues this year, and it could be as a reliever.
I'm sure Logan would be all in on the idea. Just to note, he didn't relieve his final 2 years of college. So he's not like, he has spent a long time as a starter recently. It's not something you just snap into. Matt Brash himself, starter in the minor leagues, needed to go back down to the minors and throw out of the bullpen before he came up to the big leagues. As good of the stuff as he had, he went down to the minor leagues to work on some things and to specifically throw as a bullpen arm. It might, like this, I can't guarantee, as high as we are on Logan Evans and as awesome of a dude as he is, we can't guarantee he'd be good in the we can't guarantee he'd be good in the bullpen. He has amazing stuff, but it is not the same as starting. You gotta be able to land. You don't get like a mistake pitch in an outing as a reliever. So if the Mariners deem that he's ready to do that, then we might see him if they don't feel like trading him or whoever else to go get a bullpen arm. It really might come down to that point, right? If they're trading for a Helsley with a year and a half or really getting like a young reliever, if it's hard to see the Mariners overpaying, but if they did, Logan Evans is an incredibly valuable asset that you have in your organization. A starting pitcher whose major league clock has not even started, has all these pitches, and has crazy stuff. It does not get much better than that when it comes to prospects that you could trade.
I don't know if they'd trade him for a bullpen arm. It would have to be somebody crazy to trade him for.
Like I said, can't imagine they'd overpay, but he certainly would be very valuable to other teams if they were able to land him.
Yeah, I'm sure other teams are valuing him at this point. Doesn't mean the Mariners would trade him either. So, what does that lead to? We could see Logan Evans in the bullpen. Maybe we'll start to see Logan Evans getting some bullpen outings in Double-A. And I'll tell you what, if he starts throwing out of the bullpen in Arkansas, the Mariners are going to be playing their hand, and that's fine. But if we start to see Logan Evans throwing bullpen outings in Double-A, people that are seeing it in our world are going to say, oh, they're gearing him up to get to the big leagues.
Is this even a card you need to hold close to your chest? I don't think so. Like, that doesn't really change anything.
No, I'm just saying people would start to get the idea of what we're saying may actually happen if we start to see him throwing bullpen outings. I'm not saying the Mariners need to keep the card close. I'm just saying if we begin to see it, we'll know this is a plan they have.
At some point, though, they might not have a choice. They might just have to call him up. Like say if someone else in the bullpen gets hurt, like how much does that speed up the clock? Do you think? Like I think it does.
Yeah.
Unless they're going to go out and trade for someone right now, when the trade market's usually not very active on the 14th, unless you're trading Tyson Miller away after he got DFA'd. But overall, the trade market for quality big leaguers is not robust right now.
Right. Yeah, it's certainly possible, and it's going to be something to watch. Again, come July, I think we'll be circling that idea a lot. The last thing I'll say on this subject is please wrap Andres Munoz in bubble wrap because they cannot afford to lose that guy. They're already relying on him heavily because the bullpen is down and it's not at full strength. That guy he might be up there in terms of guys you cannot afford to lose at this point. I'm like, am I saying he's more valuable than Julio? Of course not. But what I am saying is you lose Munoz, this bullpen is in big trouble. So I understand that they needed him to get the 4-out save on Monday, but I'm not saying the Mariners are making irrational decisions either. Again, they have way more information on this than we do. I just hope he is managing to stay healthy all year. That's all I'm saying because they've already lost Brash. Santos isn't going to pitch until the summer. They need Munoz.
Yeah, but do they have a choice? Like all of his outings where he's had to go that long, like he's had to.
Right.
Because you would hope there would be someone else behind him, but there's not. He's it.
Right. I know. So and to be fair, he has not thrown a whole lot of outings in the last week or so. They've been very spaced out, so he may be more built up. I'm just saying more from the perspective of please stay healthy. Just please stay on the field because the bullpen needs him very badly.
Yeah. He is making a case right now, given the state of this bullpen, that he's like one of the more valuable relievers in baseball. As good as he is, we're going to bring out the subjective value term when we talk about Andres Munoz because he offers something that not many other guys in baseball do, and he's doing it over distance, and he's doing it with efficiency as well, and we love to see it. And by the way, we haven't even barely mentioned him. He looks really good.
Very good.
He looks unbelievable.
And he took a little bit of a step back in 23, but as we've talked about over the last now 2 and close to a half years, he's been one of the best relievers in baseball. Like, let's make sure we're not saying this whole value thing in the sense of, oh, where did he come from? No, like we all know he's been one of the best relievers in the game. But now when you talk about how important he is to the bullpen, it just adds that much more emphasis on him being this good.